Katie from String Expert. Today we're going to learn the beginning version of Canon in D. Let me play it for you. So that's the Canon in D, and this is the baby beginner version. But what I always tell students is when you're learning to play a new piece, it's important to learn a lot about the piece as much as possible. So I would encourage you to do a bunch of research online. Go to YouTube and look at different players playing the Canon in D, different styles. There's so many different versions of this piece. Then if you can get a hold of a recording of the music that you have, the actual sheet music, which may or may not be the same as the recordings that you hear online, make sure that you listen to that and spend a lot of time with that. Because understand, when you're playing popular pieces, they're arranged differently. So you can't just go on YouTube and say, oh, I want to learn how to play Canon in D and expect it to be the same version as, say, the Canon in D that I'm teaching here. So that's really, really important that you sort of know that there are a lot of times a lot of differences. So with the Canon in D, I like to think about it as these beautiful, long, smooth bows. And so as I get started learning this piece, my focus, even though we're still just simply learning the notes, is to really focus on having this beautiful, smooth line and this beautiful, smooth texture. Now, when I look at my sheet music, what I'm going to first do is I'm going to do what's called sight reading. Sight reading is really important because as we become professional musicians and we play, if we audition for anything, one of the things that they do to test not only can you play the music that you prepared and you learned, but can you play the music that the symphony wants you to play or that the group wants you to play. So what they do is they give you a piece of music and they say, here, can you sight read this? And so with sight reading, it's a good time to just start practicing learning the music. So we're going to look through, and the first thing that I notice is sort of the lines of the music, because I think that's important in order to accurately tell what I'm supposed to play. So I sort of read the lines, and if you look at the first section, it has all the notes sort of going down on a scale and then sort of moving back up on a scale. So that's a good place to start. Then the next thing that I notice is the tempo, or how fast or how slow we're going to play this piece. We know that the Canon is really slow, so we're going to play it a little bit slower. And then I also want to notice what kind of notes I have. So in this case, I have starting out with half notes. So 2 notes per measure, 4 counts in a measure. So it's going to be 2 counts and 2 counts for each one of those notes. And then I just jump in and start playing and hope that I can accurately and carefully read the notes and make sure that I can play them. Now, first time through sight reading is going to be really rough. After that, we want to go through carefully and make sure that we're playing the right notes. This is really important. As you're starting to learn and develop as a player, you may become frustrated that you spent all this time working on note flashcards and yet you still can't play the Canon in D very well. Well, learning to read notes is a process and it does take a significant amount of time, so I wouldn't worry about it. In the meantime, what you can do is mark in some of the notes. Try and read them and then mark in the fingerings and not the note names, or mark in the note names and not the fingerings, until you gain to get to the point where you sort of understand what the notes are supposed to sound like and why. So with the Canon, we're going to break this up into different sections. So for today, we're going to work on part 1 and part 2. Now, part 1 is a nice easy section. We start with the first finger on the E string, F sharp, and we go all the way down to open A. So it's what we call a scale. So it's really simple. We're just going to go down until we reach the A. So let's go ahead and practice that. So we're going to start out with F sharp, first finger on the E string. And we have open E. And we have 1, 2, 3 fingers on the A string. 2 fingers on the A string. 1 finger on the A string. And then open A. So let's try that nice and slow. And remember, we're just going down a scale, which makes it much easier. Here we go. First finger on the E string. Play through this several times until I make sure that I know part 1 perfectly. I get all the notes. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a technique double check, because as we're starting as a beginner violinist, the last thing that we want to do is develop poor habits of how to hold our violin and how to play the violin. So I'm going to make sure that my thumb is right in between these 2 finger tapes here. I want to make sure that my hand is curved into a nice C and I'm not squeezing. I just have a really relaxed hand. I'm going to make sure that my hand isn't in a pancake. So it's nice and straight. Just like this. Finger curved around into a C, thumb underneath, and away you go. So let's start from the beginning of the piece and let's try part 1 again. Focusing a lot on tone, and tone is really important in this piece. So we want to think about creating the most smooth bows as possible as we're playing this. So double check your right hand technique as well. So we're going to make sure that our thumb is curved around into a C shape like this. You can kind of like look through it with your hand. Our 2 fingers are right over the top, and then we have our pinky and our pointer, and our hand is completely curved around like this. And let's try P1 again. Now let's try part 2. Part 2 is simple, but not quite as easy. So we start by going up for a few notes. So we're going to play first finger on the A string or B, second finger on the A string or C sharp, and third finger on the A string or D. So let's play first finger B, second finger C sharp, and then we're going to play third finger D. Now from this third finger, it's nice because we have a nice easy scale down. So we have second finger, first finger, open A, third finger on the D string. Do you remember what note name that is? That's right, it's G. And then second finger F. So let's try all the notes up until this point. So we're going to go up for 3 notes and then go back down. Go up for a third finger for G, and then first finger E. So third finger, first finger. Let's try part 2 again. Part 1 and part 2, and we're going to put it all together, and we're going to play this entire first section. But before we do this, if you do not know part 1 or part 2 well, pause the video and spend some good quality time making sure that it's completely perfected. The last thing you want to do is try and put everything together when you're not ready for it. And don't worry about it. Some students take a little bit longer than others to learn things, and it may require that they pause and practice this before they move on. Okay, so starting from part 1, going through part 2. Here we go. Oh, what do you think about that melody? Oh my goodness. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Let's play through one more time before we leave. Here we go. So that's part 1 and part 2 of the Canon.